A young woman, once betrayed and left for dead by her sister and husband, survives and returns to expose them, reclaiming her life and company. She navigates her trauma in a public battle against their lies, ultimately finding peace and a renewed sense of purpose by helping others. A fall from grace in the Rockies. I remember how, as a child, my sister clung to my hand, begging me never to let go. Years later, that same woman pushed me out of a helicopter, saying, "You were always in my way." My husband simply watched, arms crossed, and let me fall for the sake of a $330,000 insurance payout and my business. They thought I was dead that day, but they were wrong, and I attended my own funeral. Do you think betrayal ever reveals its true face? Or does it always hide behind the masks of those closest to you? Would you have survived something like that? The story is just beginning. It was as if the frosty morning in the Rockies was trying to warn me. The air was too sharp, too wary. I stood by the helicopter, watching snowflakes melt on the sleeve of my jacket. I wanted to believe this trip was a chance to fix everything, not another attempt to patch up a marriage that had long since crumbled. Ruslan fastened my safety harness with the same practice smile he used to greet clients at our design studio. "Happy anniversary, darling." He kissed me on the cheek, but his lips were as cold as the air. Milena was there too, hugging me tightly. So tightly that her perfume overpowered the scent of pine needles. "You deserve this day, Svetlana," she whispered, but her gaze darted away too quickly. The blades spun, and we rose into the air. Ruslan and Milena sat next to each other, their knees touching, their gazes directed anywhere but at me. From above, the world always seemed full of possibilities. Ruslan placed his hand on top of mine, and for a moment it seemed like maybe all was not lost. But Milena looked back, and there was not a drop of warmth in her eyes. The helicopter banked, revealing a panoramic view of the Rocky Mountain ranges. Milena picked up her phone. Smile for the family archive. She moved closer, closer than necessary for a selfie. The phone lowered, her lips close to my ear. "You were always in my way," she whispered. Just a second to realize. Then her hand fell on my shoulder. I saw Ruslan. His arms were crossed, his face blank. He didn't move. I wanted to scream, but the wind tore the cry from my throat. When Milena pushed, the world turned upside down. Her scarlet eyes and lips curled into a satisfied grin as I fell. The whiteness of the sky and snow swallowed me. The air whipped across my skin like a blanket. Time shattered into fragments. Mom's hands braiding my hair. The neon sign for my first studio opening. Ruslan's voice. "Trust me, Svetlana. We're a team." What an elegant lie. Branches flashed below. Instinct screamed louder than fear. I threw out my hands until my fingers caught a thick branch. Pain shot through my arm. My shoulder exploded in agony. But the fall stopped. I hung there, gasping for air. The helicopter became a speck in the sky, carrying away those who had valued my life at $330. Ling ling ling. I pulled myself up to the trunk. Every movement, a wave of pain. But I didn't cry. I just needed to breathe. Just survive. Blood-soaked mid-jeans. I leaned against the bark and closed my eyes. I wanted to sleep, but the words came out hoarsely. Not today. I'd survived by a miracle. I rose slowly. My right leg was bent at an unnatural angle. My shoulder dislocated. I noticed a fallen branch, thick enough for support. Stuck it into the snow, and forced myself to stand. One more step. I don't remember how long I walked like that. But then something dark appeared in the distance. A hunter's cabin. I limped to the door and pulled the handle. It smelled strongly of old wood and ash. And I tumbled inside, dropped to my knees, and looked around. A potbelly stove, a blanket, a first aid kit on the shelf. I crawled there and got out some bandages. While I was bandaging my leg, memories came flooding back. Little Milena, clinging to me during a thunderstorm. "Don't leave me, Svetlana. Promise." Her childish fingers clutched at mine. That girl who begged me to stay had just tried to take me away forever. A crackling sound broke the silence. On the shelf was a portable radio from the Forest Service. The woman was presumed dead. Her body had not been found. My name was clearly pronounced. "They've already reported me missing. They think I'm dead." I whispered into the void. "Let them think." I took an old peacoat off the hanger. My mind cleared. Fear was replaced by something cold and sharp. And then I remembered Vera. "Call me if your life goes to hell." Vera, an old friend from the DA's office, knows how to handle people who leave no bruises on the body, but tear everything else to shreds. I found some old combat boots, tied the bandages tighter, and threw on a peacoat. The cold hit me like a slap when I stepped out, but I let it wash away the fear. Only purpose remained. Every step was painful, but I continued, muttering a curse and a promise of revenge. The forest thinned, and a neon sign for a roadside diner flickered ahead. My body begged to collapse. But I dragged myself through and squeezed through the door. The bell rang. And everyone turned. Silence fell. And the customers stared at me. My hair was matted with blood. My clothes were in tatters. My face was swollen from the cold and tears. The young waitress took a cautious step forward. "Ma'am, what happened to you?" I didn't answer. Just walked past. I collapsed in a corner booth. My gaze fell on my phone. Scratched and peeling. They don't ask unnecessary questions in places like this. I dialed the number from memory, leaning my forehead against the cold wall. "Vera." Her voice broke when she answered. "It's me." A pause. A sharp intake of breath. "Svetlana." "Lord." They said you. Listen carefully. "I need help. Quite help. I'm on my way." She hung up. I turned around. The TV in the corner had switched to the local news. The ticker made me cringe. Design studio director. Svetlana Torina missing. Presumed dead in a helicopter crash. Ruslan was at the microphone. Milena was nearby. Her face buried in his shoulder. The picture was perfect. A grieving family. Victims of a tragedy. Please respect our grief during this difficult time. Ruslan said into the microphone. Milena raised her head. The makeup smears even thicker across her cheeks. Behind them was my studio's logo. The company I'd spent years building. A sharp laugh escaped my throat. I dug my nails into my palms, trying to stop the shaking. The bell jingled. Vera entered, quickly crossed the room, and slid across from me. "Oh. God. Svetlana. I need to check the accounts." She nodded and pulled out her laptop. They worked in silence while she opened the corporate accounts. "Everything's been transferred," she whispered, turning the screen. "It's signed with your signature." A note was left. "In the event of force majeure, the funds will ensure the company's operations." My heart ached at the realization of how carefully everything had been thought out. Vera posed. "And that's not all. They're spreading rumors. The media is hinting that you were unstable. They're talking about paranoia. Laying the groundwork." I sat back, letting the betrayal escalate to a fever pitch. What are we going to do? They think they've won. We'll take everything back. And if they need a funeral, I'll give them one they won't forget. Almost 6 years have passed since my fall. All this time, I've been a ghost. Without a name. Without documents. Without a past. After treatment, in an anonymous clinic abroad, I disappeared. First in the mountains, where I helped rebuild a village after a landslide. Then in Alabama, where I worked with women who had survived violence. I hid. Hid the pain. Learned to live without anger. But the truth never went away. It was brewing like a stormy sky. And on the day they decided to bury me, not as a person, but as a nuisance, I returned. Not to forgive, but to remind them I'm alive. And I remember, I stood at the entrance to the funeral hall. My black dress hugged my figure. I adjusted the neckline. Looking at my reflection in the dark glass, I whispered, "You can't leave." I pushed the door open. The scent of lilies and cheap perfume filled the air. Silence fell like a broken cup. Heads turned. Cameras clicked. People saw the ghost they had gathered to mourn. Milena froze, her handkerchief halfway to her face. Ruslan was at the podium. His mouth was open. The word never came out. A journalist shouted from behind. It was Svetlana Torina. I walked forward. Vera's heels clicked on the tiles. I passed a stand with my black and white portrait with a mourning ribbon. In memory of my beloved was engraved under my name. "I see they've started without me." My voice was even. Ruslan blinked. Shock gave way to a public mask. He stepped toward me with outstretched arms. "Svetlana. Thank God you're alive." I stepped back. "Don't touch me." The room filled with sighs. Some stood up and backed away. Others filmed on their phones. Milena followed. Her hand was shaking. "Svetlana. We thought. You ran away. You've been so nervous lately. You were scared." Her voice wavered. The perfect note of worry. "But her eyes never met me. You can lie to them." I nodded at the cameras. "But you can't lie to me anymore." The journalists leaned forward. Question pouring in. Flashes flashed like lightning. Ruslan tried to pull me away. "Svetlana. Let's get out of here. You need help." I pulled my hand away. "The only thing I need is for you to take your hands off me." Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted Vera. She came over, slipped a small flash drive into my palm, and whispered, "When will you be ready?" As she left, she kept her head down, ignoring the shouts of the reporters. Vera's car was waiting down the block. We didn't speak until the doors slammed shut. Driving in the twilight. "You need to see this," she said. In her apartment, we sat by the window, the city lights pulsing below. She inserted the flash drive. On the screen, folders with dates, bank statements, confirmations of transfers, my name, my signature authorized transfers I'd never seen. "Svetlana. Look, She opened the correspondence between Milena and Ruslan. They were planning the day to get rid of me and collect the insurance money. Now she's a burden. We can't let her ruin everything. Ruslan's words on the screen. It was like being pushed again. This time without the wind. I reread it twice. 3 times. Burning the betrayal into my memory. They planned it all. Vera picked up the phone and dialed a lawyer friend. We can freeze the joint accounts and begin the process of regaining control of the company. The next morning, the 3 of us sat in the cramped office of the law firm. The air was stifling. The tension was piercing. Papers rustled. The lawyer's hands flickered. He opened records. Checked balances. Certified signatures. He finally stood up. Val? Svetlana. I'm sorry. They've already filed papers declaring you incompetent. The boards are frozen. Trying to take away the company's voting rights. The walls seemed to shift. I heard the echo of Milena's voice. The feel of her hand before the fall. They knew I'd come for them. I need a minute. I went out into the hallway. The mirror above the sink was cracked. A jagged line across my reflection dug into the edges of the sink. Tears welled up. But I brushed them away, letting anger dissipate the fog. Not this time. I whispered to the woman in the mirror and returned to the office. We'll find another way. They want to see me weak. That's how they lose. My phone vibrated. A message from an unfamiliar number. I know what they did. We'll meet. I looked at the screen, knowing it was either an ally or a trap. But there was no choice. The cold air stung my face. And I walked to the same roadside diner. Sat in a corner booth, watching every shadow. The bell rang. A man in a shabby jacket entered. Scanned the room. Found me. And moved cautiously. My name is Ethan. He said quietly. I know what Milena and your husband did to you. Where from? I worked for Milena. I thought I loved her. She used me. Threw me away. But I kept copies. Documents that would burn her to ashes. I studied him. Why now? Because I saw how she destroyed people and walked away with a smile. When I saw your face on the news, I couldn't keep quiet any longer. He moved the key 2 blocks away to a container in the industrial zone. Fake medical records. Insurance forms. Correspondence about how they would manage you. The word manage made him squeeze the key tighter. I shoved it in my pocket. Why are you helping? He let out an empty laugh. Maybe you should stop being a coward. Vera was waiting a block away. We barely spoke on the way to the industrial zone. Inside the container, lights flickered. Boxes neatly stacked. Milena's handwriting was everywhere. Documents about my health. Fake diagnoses. Plans to make me look crazy. Vera held her breath. This light would be enough to bury them. The phone vibrated. A video call. Milena. Her face filled the screen. Calm. Level-headed. Come on. Look at her. You're rummaging where you shouldn't. You know where I am, she smirked. Of course. You think you've won anything. You've always been a weakling. It's sweet of you to compete with me. You tried to kill me. Be careful with your words. I still have connections high up. If you decide to make this public, I'll turn every secret you have inside out. The connection was cut off. I was left staring at the black screen. The weight of the world suddenly fell upon me. Milena's voice echoed in my head. She's still in control. I whispered. Vera squeezed my hand. She's afraid. That's why she's threatening. I wiped away my tears, letting anger burn away my fear. Then let her be afraid. Now it's my turn. I twisted the key in my hand. I need to get back there. There's a file there that will either free me or destroy everything. I walked out, clutching the folder to my chest. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked to the courthouse. That's it. Enough hiding. The hallway smelled of stale coffee. Vera walked alongside me. We passed through the metal detector. The guard eyed me like something supernatural. But I didn't flinch. They were waiting in the conference room. Milena. Her posture perfect. Her face a mask of concern. Ruslan feigned grief. But the flash of fear in his eyes gave it all away. I closed the door. The click sounded like a gunshot. Everyone turned. I threw the folder on the table. Svetlana. Ruslan began. Standing up, I raised my hand. No. I opened the folder. Laid out the documents. Emails. Bank transfers. Fake medical records. Their crime in black and white. This is what you did. That's who you are. Milena laughed. Svetochka. How awkward. Did you always have these breakdowns? We tried to help. I looked into her eyes, letting the silence hang until she looked away. You were always in my way. You whispered that when you pushed me out of the helicopter, I never thought I'd live to tell you this to your face. The air seemed to be sucked out of the room. You have no evidence. Milena blurted out. Vera and Ethan were working outside. I could feel it from the vibrations on my phone. While Milena was speaking, Vera was posting evidence online, tagging newsgroups, social media accounts. Everyone who believed my sister's lies. Your lies won't work anymore. Milena's phone vibrated. Again and again. She scrolled through her feed. Her face turned pale. The room filled with the jingle of notifications. Screens lit up one after another. Ruslan's lawyer cleared his throat and looked at me with something resembling respect. The family friend, who had always disliked me, fidgeted uneasily. Malena's hands shook as she clutched her phone. Her eyes darted around like a cornered animal. "Do you think this is the end?" she whispered, jumping up so abruptly that the chair overturned. I stepped closer. My voice was even. No. This was only the beginning. She looked at me. Her jaw was moving. But no words came. This time there was nothing to weave. Nowhere to hide. I took the folder and slowly, carefully gathered the pages, letting her understand. Now I'm in control. I'm not afraid anymore. I stepped outside and breathed in the crisp air. This time, the cold didn't feel like a punishment. It was freedom. Fresh. Clean. Washing away fear and the years of letting them decide who I would be. My phone vibrated again. But I didn't check it right away. For the first time in a long time, I felt solid ground beneath my feet. Air in my lungs. The desire to breathe. I knew the fight wasn't over. But I was ready. I squeezed through the courthouse doors. The cold morning air hit my face. Sharp. Real. Giving me strength for what lay ahead. A crowd had gathered. Journalists yosled. Flashbulbs flashed. People with phones filmed every second of my emergence into daylight. I clutched the folder to my chest and took a deep breath. I reminded myself why I had to move forward. Why I couldn't let them silence me again. I stepped forward. The hum grew louder. I caught fragments. It was her. She was alive. What was happening? My hands trembled for a second. I squeezed them, catching my breath. This was bigger than me now. This was about everyone who had been pushed aside. Called nothing. Forced to smile. While the likes of Malena and Ruslan stole everything. I just started finding my rhythm when phones started buzzing all around me. Notifications. Faces turned to each other in confusion. Vera was nearby, holding the phone, scanning the headlines. Svetlana. They're trying to turn everything upside down. Milena acts quickly. News alerts appeared. They showed forged documents with my signature, claiming I'd transferred company funds to personal accounts. Headlines accused me of instability, fraud, and faking my own death to cover up crimes. My name was trending for all the wrong reasons. For a moment, the fear I'd so stubbornly buried burst forth. Cold. Familiar. The fear of being unheard. Of losing everything again. Of watching what was mine be taken away with a smile on my face. I looked down. My reflection swaying in a puddle. I saw the woman they tried to make me into broken. Silent. Easily erased. Ready, Vera whispered. I looked at her. At the waiting people. At the cameras. Still recording. Yes. Ready? We moved toward the steps. The crowd parted. Vera connected my phone to the portable projector they'd prepared earlier. The image flickered on the courthouse wall. The video began. People turned. Their eyes widened. Malena was laughing in the video, holding a glass of wine. Her voice was drunk. Leaning toward the camera. She was always a nuisance. Clinking glasses with Ruslan. I never expected that. All it took was a nudge. Easy money. Clear faces. Unambiguous words. True. For all to see, a collective sigh swept through the crowd. Phones rose. Filming every second. Broadcasting live. Some covered their mouths. Others screamed in outrage. A wave of realization spread like wildfire. I saw people looking at me. Then back at the video. I saw it. They understood. Malena's people tried to break through from the edge of the crowd, shouting for the video to be deleted and for the filming to stop. But it was too late. Malena suddenly appeared next to me. Her face was red. Her eyes wild. She lunged at me, screaming. It's a shame you're not dead. Her voice trembled with rage. The carefully crafted image crumbled. Security quickly reacted and dragged her away. She was kicking and screaming. Threats pierced the cold air. I will destroy you. Do you think you've won? I froze. The chaos around me gave way to a silent tunnel. I watched her struggle. Her strength draining away. I felt no pity. No fear. Only freedom. Voices rang out, chanting my name. People applauded. Some extended their hands. Touched my shoulder. Tears stung her eyes. But she didn't let them fall. Not here. Not now. I raised my head, letting the truth take root around us. The air was fresh. Sharp. Washing away the weight I'd carried for too long. As security led Malena away, a journalist stepped forward. The microphone shook slightly. Svetlana? What now? When the truth has been revealed. I stopped. Turned. Looked at her. Then at the people around me. Their faces were full of hope. Curiosity. Mistrust. A faint, tired smile touched my lips. Now I'm alive. The aftermath and a new beginning for the first time. I opened my eyes to silence. The cityscape shimmered outside the window. The early light of Los Angeles bathed the building in a soft, forgiving glow. I sat up slowly, breathing in the warm air. My hands wrapped around the mug of coffee Vera had left on the nightstand before their early meeting. Steam rose to my face, filling the voids inside that had yawned for too long. I let my thoughts wander. The silence was broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. I remember the day Milena first took my hand. We were just girls on the brink of our parents' divorce. Milena clutched the paper crane I folded for her. She whispered, "Don't leave me." The memory hurt the most because she abandoned me again and again. Until the final betrayal, which nearly cost me my life. The pain of betrayal is an echo of a family turned into strangers, of love turned into a weapon. I put down the coffee, picked up my phone, and scrolled through the stream of messages. Some, filled with hatred, called me a liar and wrote that I deserved it. Others, from strangers sharing stories of betrayal and rebellion when the world wanted them down. I deleted the threats, blocked the numbers, and put the phone away. My hand found the folder with the last documents from Vera and signed each page, reasserting control of the company. Every grove of trees was like a breath of fresh air. Vera returned later in the morning, her hair in a low bun, a tired smile, handed me another cup of coffee. We sat in the small kitchen. The city bustled outside. Cars. People. A new day. Will you ever forgive her? Vera asked quietly. Her eyes sought mine over the mug. I felt tears welling up. I held them back. My throat ached, and I shook my head. I don't know. Maybe forgiveness isn't for her. Maybe it's about allowing myself to move on. Vera extended her hand, squeezed, and then let go. A warm silence fell between us. A gentle reminder that I wasn't alone anymore. That afternoon, I went to the women's center I'd helped build many years ago. A place for those starting over, recovering from life's storms. I moved among them unnoticed. I observed laughter, quiet conversations, small victories, paperwork completed, jobs found. Children in bright dresses played in the corner. It felt right to stand here, to see women rediscover themselves. Step by step. A little girl of about 6, with curly hair and huge brown eyes, tugged at my coat and held a paper crane. The wings were neatly folded, the edges slightly jagged. Hope, she said timidly, placing it in my hand, and ran off to her mother. I closed my eyes for a moment, feeling the soft paper in my palm. I remembered the day I made the crane for Milena and said the same word, hope. The circle isn't perfect, but it's sufficient. Walking back through the city at sunset, I felt every step as a promise. Trust may never be fully restored. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. But I'm alive. Free. Strong enough to move forward without fear of being silenced. I stopped on a quiet alley in a small park, pulled out my phone, and aimed the camera at myself. The reflection stared back. Older. Wiser. Still bearing the shadows of what had been lived through, but with a light in its eyes that had been missing for so long. Have you experienced anything like this? I asked quietly, letting the words fall. Tell your story. I'll read every one. I finished the entry, put the phone in my pocket, and turned to the bright lights of the street. The air was cold but fresh, and I let it fill my lungs. I took a step, then each one easier than the last. And for the first time, I didn't need their approval to feel alive. It was enough for me to simply be with myself. Story 2. Having turned on the recording of the cameras in the house, I saw my sister, and was horrified by her words. My mother demanded, "You're obligated to take care of your sister. Let her prepare for university in Moscow. Refusal is not an option." My husband agreed to welcome Yana into our home. A month later, I realized my sister was lying to me. I turned on the house security cameras, saw my sister, and was horrified by her words. Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel and leave any comments. Your support helps us grow the channel and share even more stories with you. Enjoy listening. You simply must take care of your little sister, her mother declared, confronting Olya with the fact her little sister had already boarded a plane and would soon arrive in the capital. Who else would look after her there? You know yourself that the capital is not our little village. As soon as she settles in and passes the university entrance exams, my father and I will rent her an apartment right away. But for now, take care of her. Olya felt uneasy at her mother's words. She wanted to take care of her sister, but she herself was living in her husband's house and didn't think it was right to invite other relatives there. Besides, Yana had never been known for her easygoing nature. Her sister was quite wild, and she certainly didn't mince her words. She'd say it straight out and make others feel guilty. Yana seemed familiar with manners and etiquette, but she certainly had no intention of adhering to them. Igor loved the peace and quiet at home. It was terrifying to think what their life might become with Yana's arrival. Olya even considered which of her friends she could turn to for help, but realized she had few options. It was unlikely anyone would be able to take her sister in and care for her. In this situation, she had to rely solely on herself. I had to go to my husband and tell him everything as it was. Olga was afraid Igor would get angry. But he just shrugged. He'll come. He'll come. Why make a tragedy out of it? You've been bored at home lately. Now you can have some fun. You can go for a walk with your sister. Unwind. And I'll just finish working on a big project. Olga was grateful to her husband, though she wasn't sure whether it was right to have her sister over. She was still afraid that Yana would definitely do something and make her older sister look bad. However, upon her arrival, her sister was as quiet as a mouse. She had changed so much that she even wondered if she had been replaced. The usually noisy and restless Yana now resembled a truly mannered lady. You're unrecognizable. You're unrecognizable. Mom said you'd grown up. Of course. But I didn't think you'd grown that much. I'm glad you understand so much now. Tomorrow we can go for a walk around Red Square. And regarding admission, I've already decided where to apply. Yana looked at her sister and shrugged innocently. She looked away, fluttered her eyelashes, and smiled at her brother-in-law, who was sitting at the table with them. Thank you for such a warm welcome. I was so embarrassed to ask. I'm so glad you didn't refuse to see me. I'll do my best to justify your trust. Olga didn't quite understand why her sister had suddenly decided to approach her husband instead of both of them, but she didn't dwell on it. The next day, she and Yana went for a walk. The girl admired the beauty of the capital, saying she hadn't realized how much she'd love this city. And now she'd like to settle down here. You'll get your diploma. Do an internship. Maybe you'll find a good job right away and stay. Olga shrugged. You didn't get a diploma. And you didn't even do an internship. Jana giggled. You came and immediately charmed a wealthy, handsome man. What if I decide to follow in your footsteps? Sister Olga felt completely uneasy at these words. She didn't actually graduate. But even though she had an incomplete higher education, she managed to find a job at a good company and wasn't living off her husband. She couldn't even imagine living off her husband. She needed her own pocket money. After all, constantly asking her husband for money wasn't her ultimate dream. Igor might have been able to provide for his wife completely, but that wasn't the life Olga aspired to. She'd achieved much through hard work and even considered buying an apartment, just in case. No one is immune to major changes that can happen in the blink of an eye. If her husband didn't like something and suddenly decided to find someone else, then Olga needed a cushion to fall back on. Besides, she wanted to teach her sister a lesson. Oh, stop being embarrassed and acting like a saint. I know you didn't rush off to marry him without a reason. You knew such promising husbands weren't easy to find. Does he by any chance have any friends? Someone equally handsome and wealthy? Olga just shook her head. She wanted to explain herself to her sister, but she knew Yana would react harshly to anything she said now. The younger sister was convinced that Olga had married purely for convenience. She hadn't even considered love. Yet it was precisely because of this deep love that Olga hadn't been able to sleep at night until she and Igor got together. And now, from time to time, imagining life without him, Olga was afraid and immediately pushed away the negative thoughts. Several weeks passed. Yana behaved well, but occasionally returned home late. When her sister asked where she'd been, she'd say she'd only report to her mother. Igor, too, had become withdrawn and irritable lately. Sometimes he'd snap at his wife over trivial matters. He'd apologize later, of course, but that didn't absolve him of guilt. Olga tried to understand what was going on. Her husband was angry that her sister had been living in their house for so long, and Yana hadn't mentioned the entrance exams, as if she had no intention of applying. When Olga brought it up, Yana merely put on a pained expression and declared that she was studying for the exams. And my sister only gets in the way with her questions. Mom, you shouldn't have sent her here. Olga grumbled during a conversation with my mother. She never listened to me. And now she even thinks she's independent. And Igor is constantly on edge. I think he doesn't like having a stranger in the house at all. There are so many things he doesn't like. He married you. Let him tolerate and accept your relatives. He's so picky. And when he gets worked up, he'll get divorced. Her mother's words struck like thunder. Her mother hadn't meant it at all. But Olga had taken it too literally. She hadn't wanted to divorce her husband at all. Don't worry so much. I'll be moving out soon. I managed to come up with something about housing. You'll be living harmoniously with your husband again. What's the point of talking like that? Yana laughed. Why are you making fun of me? I'm worried about you too. You said you'd take the entrance exams. But I haven't heard where. My dear sister. Don't worry about me. I'll definitely sort everything out, and I definitely won't be living in poverty. I also advise you to take a closer look at your life. Are you happy with everything? Olga didn't like her sister's words, but she didn't worry about it. Returning to work from vacation, Olga was worried that her sister would do something wrong. During her lunch break, she decided to open the CCTV footage. She didn't know why she decided to look at them. Her husband had installed them a long time ago, but they'd never used them. He'd said it would be nice to keep an eye on the house when they went on vacation, but they hadn't been far from home in a while. noticing Yana enter the living room and say something to Igor in a raised voice. Olga froze. She turned up the volume to hear what they were talking about. I'm not going to wait long. My sister's been driving me crazy about this admission. So I want to live on my own. Don't you value your relationship with Olya so much that you're not willing to hurry? I told you. I'm very busy right now. Give me a couple of days, and I'll find you a decent place to live. I'll pay the rent for 6 months. And then you can handle it yourself. You're so sure Olya will forgive you. Do you know what my sister will never be able to accept? You've guessed it, cheating. I caught you red-handed. I can ruin your relationship with your sister with the snap of my fingers. Think carefully, whether it's beneficial for you to be friends with me or enemies. I'm not burning with love for my sister. And I couldn't care less that her husband is cheating on her. But I'm willing to go to great lengths for my own well-being. And you, Igor, how far will you go to prevent Olya from learning the truth? You said you stumbled. But how many more will you stumble? And how long will she remain in the dark? It all depends on you. Of course. Solely on you. Igor was angry and clenched his fists. But he didn't argue with Yana. She was telling the truth. Olya felt as if the ground had fallen from under her feet. It was as if she'd been placed on some terrifying ride and was being spun around at breakneck speed. She felt nauseous. And tears welled up in her eyes. Her husband had another woman. And Yana had found out. Instead of revealing the truth to her sister, she decided to blackmail her brother-in-law and get a job at his expense. And Igor fell for it. He was willing to do anything to keep his wife from finding out the whole truth. But why cheat if he was still afraid of losing their relationship and now regretted it? Getting answers to these questions was impossible. He didn't want to go home. Olga knew this was the end. Now she couldn't keep quiet and pretend nothing had happened. She planned to end things right away and leave. When she got home, Olga learned from her husband that her sister had found a place to live at a good price and moved out. It was funny to listen to lies when you knew the truth. Looking at her husband, Olga waited for at least a hint of remorse in his eyes. But there was none. Nothing at all. He'd wasted so much money. Housing in the capital is definitely not cheap. And paying for it 6 months in advance is too much. And you knew I wouldn't forgive you for such a betrayal anyway. Why did you even try? What are you talking about? Did your sister really dare to sing to you? Igor flared up. Jumping up. What are you saying, my sister? No matter who she was, always kept her word. Was a deal made with her, she wouldn't have dared tell me anything. But the bird on the tail brought it all anyway. Igor tried to explain to his wife that she was being deceived. But he gave himself away with every word. After all, Olga hadn't even had time to tell me what exactly she had learned. Listening to the lies was extremely difficult. Every word her husband said was like drops of acid. Eating away at everything. Forgive me. This will never happen again. I don't know who led me astray. You're the only one I love. I swear it. Give me another chance. And I'll prove to you that you're the only woman in my life. How she wanted to believe. Trust. And stay. But Olga understood perfectly well that if he betrayed her once, nothing would stop him from doing it again. If my husband had truly regretted what he'd done as desperately as he now claimed, he would have confessed himself. He would have apologized earlier, rather than waiting for the truth to come out. He knew full well that a cat in a bag is a secret. Since Olga found out about everything and left her husband, he took back the rent. And Yana was asked to move out. The girl was indignant and tried to reason with her sister, but to no avail. And she was forced to return to her parents' home. Olga, however, was glad she had always strived for independence. Now she had some savings. And she could buy a small studio. And more was sure to come. Olga tried not to give up. She learned a hard lesson and realized that even the closest people can betray for their own gain. Olga will never forget this.